Hello and welcome. Now this is a tutorial about how you use the pen and the brush tool in Photoshop when you're drawing. I'll just go through some of the basics so you can get started and you can play a little around with yourself and maybe check out some of my upcoming tutorials if you want to know more about both the pen tool and the brush later. Well, first of all, over here we have our little layer window. This is where our layer will be shown, and I'll tell you a little more about that later along the way so you can see what we use them for and why they are so important. Over here on Files and New, I'll just start a new project. I'll just call it Tutorial for the fun of it, and I'll make it 500, 500, and check that it's a transparent background. Okay. Now you can see here's the canvas that I'm going to be working on. Over here it has created a layer, and these little squares here shows you that your layer is transparent. Now over here on the left side you have all the little tools that you can choose from when you're working in Photoshop. The first tool I'm going to pick up is the brush tool. It's this little one with the picture of a brush, and if I click down in the corner here I'll get 4 options to choose from. I'll just choose the brush tool, this tutorial. Now, before I'll start drawing, I'll have to check a few things. First of all, I check the colors. I want it to be black, so I go down here and check. You can see there are 2 squares here, a black one on the top and a little white one underneath it. It's the black square that shows you which color your brush is using, and it is actually black right now, but I want to show you how you can choose a different color if you wanted that. You just click on the top square down here and you get a nice little palette to choose from, and you just click, and over here you can see which color you have chosen, and you can go down this beautiful colored line here and find all the other colors and choose the one you want. The great thing for me right now is that on every palette you can go down in this corner and choose the color black. So I'll do that. Okay. Now I go up here and check that the opacity is 100 and that the flow is also 100, because I want the color to be as bright as possible. And over here, when I click on this little arrow, I get a window. This window shows all the shapes that you can choose for the brush when you're drawing. And they have some really funny shapes down here, but I'll just choose this one, which is the one I call the basic shape, because to make a nice crisp line. So that's the one I'm always using when I'm making outlines in my drawings. Now up here you have to choose which size you want your brush to be, and you can do that in 2 different ways. I'll always just highlight it and push 5, or the number I want, the size I want, on the keyboard, and then enter. You can also just drag this one and change the size doing that, but that's a bit difficult because it's hard to hit the exact size you want. So I'll always just type it on my keyboard and enter. So now I checked the color, the opacity, the flow, and the basic shape and size. So now I can start drawing. I'll just draw something very simple here, like that. So now you really know the basics about how to get started. You know how to make a canvas and how to choose a brush. But I'll show you a little more about these brushes. The reason why I don't choose this one, I'll just make it a little bigger here, is because it has this blurry line to it, and I don't really like that a lot. It can be fun when you're coloring, have this funny little structure there, but for my outlines it's not really what I want. I can show you this one also. It has also a really funny kind of dry structure to it. With these kind of brushes you can go up here and play a little with the opacity, and then you get a more transparent feeling to it, and you can make it in different shades, you know, whatever what you're using it for. So you can play a little around with that. But you can also go up here and check, click this little arrow here, and you get a list. This list is a list about with all the other types of brushes you can choose from. I'll just choose dry media brushes because they are really fun to play with. I'll choose this one. I'll just check my opacity again and draw down here. This is a dry media brush. Now it is a bit difficult to see, so I'll just make a new layer here, a new layer, and I'll call it background. So I'll make it a bit easier for you to see what I'm talking about. Now there's a layer over here. It created a new layer, and I'll just pull that down so it's lying underneath the other one, and I choose the color white, my paint bucket here, and now it's white. So now you can see that down here that this dry media brush has made it look a bit like you're drawing on a real canvas, so it has a really great structure to it. Now when I want to draw again, I have to choose the layer that I'm working on, because I don't want to draw on the background, but I want to draw on this layer, and I'll go back and choose the black color again. I'll just show you this brush also. This is a really funny brush because it gives this feeling of your paper being, crunched or curled up and then folded out again, and you can make really great backgrounds with this type of brush. And these media brushes are really fun to play with because you can do all kinds of effects using them. I'll just take this one also. It's a bit of a coral drawing effect, and if you play with the flow here, you get a whole nother feeling using that. So it's really just, you just have to get to know the brushes and how they respond on the flow and the opacity and stuff like that. I use the dry media brush a lot when I'm painting or when I'm coloring my shadows in my drawings, because they give a really great structure for that. So that's what I'm using them for. But now I'll show you that if you want to go back to the basic brushes, you'll just find your list again and you find the reset brushes like that. Okay, so over here we have the basic brush, and I'll just choose size 5 again like that, because now I want to tell you a little about how to use the pen tool. The pen tool is this little picture down here that shows the pen they're writing with it in the old days. But to do that, first of all, I'll make a new layer, because it's important always to make a new layer when you're starting something new, because then you can do this. You can make the other layer disappear, so you don't have to draw on top of this. You can just make it go away, and then you have a white blanket or a white canvas to work on. Now, an important thing to be aware of when you are using the pen tool is that you have to have the right settings for your brush tool, because that is really the one that decides how your pen tool is drawing. It's a bit weird, but that's how it is. So you have to make the settings you want for the brush tool. I made it a basic shape, size 5. I have the black color like I want. I have 100% opacity and 100% flow. So the settings are just the way I want them. Now I'll go down to the pen tool here and click it. The way the pen tool works is that you make what they call anchor points. So if I want to make a straight line, I have to make 2 anchor points besides each other. I make 1 anchor point here. I do that just by clicking on the canvas, and 1 over here. So now you can see you have a fairly straight line between these 2 anchor points. So to make the pen draw, you have to right click and click on stroke path, and you can click on OK like that, and you can see the anchor points are still there, and then you have to push enter on your keyboard. Now you have a nice straight crisp line. But you can also use the pen tool to make curvy lines. you do that also by making anchor points. First I make one here and one over here, but I'll still press my pen down, or if you're using a mouse you should still click on it, and then I drag it. I don't let go, I just drag it, and I can drag it in every direction I want it to be, and I can play around with it as long as I don't let go of it. So now I'll let go here, and again click stroke path, and instead of clicking OK, I can just push enter 2 times on my keyboard. It goes a little faster that way. So that was one curve, and you can make as many curves as you want with the pen tool. You just have to make more anchor points. So I make one there, and another one there, and another one there, and one there. So if you're looking very carefully here, you can see that when I made a line from that anchor point over to that anchor point, it made a kind of a curve here, and that's because it is really relating on this curve down here. This curve had a direction going that way, really, which this arm is showing us. So the line really had to go that way, but it was told to go the other way, so now I made a turn like that. So if I wanted to make a straight line, I had to do something else, and I'm showing you that in the next line down here. First I'll make some curves like that. So if I wanted a straight line over here now, I had to press Alt on my keyboard and press this little anchor point here. So now you lost this arm, so I don't have to go in that direction anymore. Now it can go over there. And I'll show you again. If I went like that and I wanted to make a straight line up here and not having it go like that, I would have to press Alt, click on the anchor point, just go up there. Now you have a straight line. So as you can see, you can make all kinds of curves, and you can also make straight lines as long as you know some of the basic rules for how to use the pen tool. I'll just show you one more like this. If I made this line, these curves, and I thought that's not enough, they're not curvy enough, I want more curves or stuff like that, I go down here and click on the corner of my pen tool and choose the option add anchor point tool like that. So now I can just add new anchor points like that, and I can drag it around and make the curve just the way I want it. I can even drag these arms around like that, twist them in every direction, and I can drag them so I make the curve even bigger like that, and up here also, so I make the pointy thing even longer. And I can even, twist these ones around that were already there and move the anchor points just the way I want it, and make more anchor points if I want that. So you can see you can really twist and turn these curves and the line, the pen tool, as much as you want. You just have to know a little about the basics, like the ones I've shown you here. It can take some time to learn, and you have to practice a lot, but it's a lot of fun, and you can use it for every little detail as long as you have been practicing and you know some of the basics here. I'll just do that so we get a line. Now some people are asking if you really need to use a pen tool, and you don't have to, but I have the feeling that when you're using a pen tool to make an outline, you get a more crisp, nice straight line than when I'm drawing like this by hand. You get these kind of